Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Jackson Mental Health Podcast. Today, I'm on a Zoom call with Rob Muldoon. He recently visited the Sizewell team and spoke to them about imposter syndrome, and today that is the subject. But before we get into imposter syndrome, maybe, Rob, you could just give us a bit of background about what you did in the construction industry and how we've got to this point, that you're now talking about mental health.
So I've worked in construction for 26 years now. Started off as an apprentice bricklayer for a big brickwork contractor in the northwest of England, from working out of Stockport, but we ended up working all over the country. I worked for that business for 22 years, something around about that time, from the age of 16 up to 38. And I progressed my career, I guess, is the best way of putting it. I think because I could think for myself, I could problem solve and just get on with it attitude and get it done. I ended up finding myself in a position where I was progressing my career without even trying to progress it. So before I knew it, I'd obviously finished my apprenticeship and as a bricklayer for a few years. And then I became a supervisor for them. And before I knew it, became a manager. And then somehow I ended up becoming a project manager for them, running these big tier one subcontracting projects. And I used to think to myself, how the heck have I got to this point? I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. And all the wonderful things that imposter syndrome will tell you about why you can't do the job and why you're not good enough and why you're feeling like this. Because I used to sit in meeting rooms or be out on site or I'd get a phone call and everybody would be looking at me for all the answers. And I used to sit in those rooms or have those conversations with the people and their name would be whatever the name is with the degree letters after the name. And I'd just be Rob the bricklayer. And I'm like, I'm not good enough for this. Now I can look back at that time now and realize that obviously was good enough for that. And I was meant to be the right person to be where I was, because if I wasn't doing a good job, I wouldn't have got there in the first place. But that niggling self-doubt and that self-belief, which I didn't have, was holding me back and it was strangling me in my own career. Maybe if I was in the position that I am now and I understand all that sort of things, I could have progressed my career even further than I did. But it was a massive anchor around me all the time, and it stopped me in a lot of different ways, and it was all part of what really happened to me and why I do the work that I do today. Because I not only do the podcasts and things like that, but off the back of doing those podcasts, it all came around from having a massive breakdown on a construction site in Liverpool after a weekend away that I'd spoiled because of my behaviour and the way I was looking after myself or the way I wasn't looking after myself. And I ended up missing out on holidays because of the imposter syndrome was telling me that if you take time off, Rob, holiday cover's got to come in. Then when holiday cover comes in, they're going to go out on site. And they go out on site, they're going to see everything that you've done wrong because you're not good enough and you're definitely not meant to be the person that's running this project and you aren't the one that is meant to be in charge here. And then when they do find all that that you've done wrong out on site, they're going to ring the office and they're going to say to the office, why have you got Rob running this project? He's got no idea what he's doing. Get rid of him. If they do get rid of me, that definitely means I can't do my job. And if I definitely can't do my job, how can I go out and get another job somewhere else? If I can't go out and get another job somewhere else, how do I pay my bills? How do I provide my family? How do I put school shoes on my kids' feet? You know what? It's easy just not go on holiday. And I can stand back now and look at that and go, that sounds absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's what it was doing to me. It was controlling my life in ways that I didn't realize and the ways that I didn't understand. And instead of trying to understand it and trying to deal with it, I never wanted to ask the questions about it because, again, it could lead me down these spirals of thought of, do they not think I'm good enough? Do they not think I can do my job? And if they don't think I can do my job, then they're going to get rid of me and everything else. It becomes a vicious circle. And it was having impact on my home life as well because I never took the time off. and they never booked anything off. I used to miss out on holidays, stuff for the kids, birthdays, parties, all that sort of stuff because they'd always be at work. And again, this had nothing to do with the contractor that I was working with. When I opened my mouth and I had this breakdown, they got me the help and support I needed.
Yeah.
But I had to push myself to that breaking point before I'd ask for it because in construction, we just don't talk about this stuff. We've got a big problem. We'll sit and we'll talk about things that are going on out on site, but we don't always sit and go on about what's going on inside us and in our heads. And it can have massive impacts on projects. And I think there's a lot of people in the industry that are a lot like me, where they internalize it all and you just push it down and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going till something has to give. And for me, I was away. I should have gone away on the Friday, the Monday, and the Tuesday, and I would have been back on site on the Wednesday. But I never booked the Friday off. I never booked the Monday off, and I never booked the Tuesday off. But I ended up meeting everybody that was on that holiday. I got there late Friday night, site shut early, but I was still in my office at 5:30, like exhausted from a week of putting that mask on and that fake persona and pretending everything's okay. And I don't get any of that stuff. None of that stuff bothers me. It's the new bad back. I don't have anything going on. And I've finally motivated myself to get up and get over there. But it took me that time to motivate myself because I was sat there thinking I've got QA reports to do, I've got handovers to do, I've got silo blowns to sort out, I've got scaffold strikes to arrange, I've got two Arctic loads of block coming in on a city centre project first at 6 o'clock on Monday morning. I've got too much to do. I ain't got time to go away. But I motivated myself to get up and get over there. And on the Saturday morning, everybody was up and out early, and all I wanted to do was lie in bed and hide away from the world because I was exhausted, I was worn out, and I was burnt out. But again, I didn't know what burnout was. And I went out on this walk with everybody, and I ended up exploding at my 3-year-old son because he'd been asking me for pizza all morning, and I got him the pizza at lunchtime. I gave it to him, and he said, "I don't want it, Dad." And that was the beginning of the end for me, and I just exploded. And I went like after I made an absolute fool of myself in that restaurant. I got up, I walked out, I left, and I went back to where we were staying, and I just hid in the bedroom for the rest of that weekend. And it turns out I was having a panic attack. Now I didn't know what a panic attack. Asked me one about cavity barriers. Asked me one about safe working loads of scaffolding. Asked me one
Yes.
about cavity ties and all the details and brick bonds and everything like that. Asked me one about them. I could tell you all about that stuff. But ask me a question about what's going on in my head and what's going on in my feelings inside me. I had no idea how to express it. But on Monday morning, 4:30, my alarm went off. I got myself up, got myself dressed, and I went straight to work. I just had this huge meltdown over the weekend and couldn't understand what was going on in my own life, but I still got up and I went to work because that's what we do. We just keep going.
Yeah.
And I got to work, sorted those deliveries out, and I ended up just having this big breakdown on site. Once I knew everybody was safe and everybody was earning and nobody needed anything from me. At the time, I had a pickup truck, so I had a L200 pickup truck with a tub on the back of it. Once I knew everybody was safe and earning, nobody needed anything from me. I went out into the car park, I dropped the tailgate on that pickup, and I just hid in the tub of that pickup and I broke down. And I ended up speaking to my boss, and he arranged some support for me and things like that. And I got myself better, and I came back to work. And I got everybody together on that Monday morning when I came back to work, and I was like, "Look, this is what's happened to me." And I went on to explain what had gone on. But a lot of the lads that I was working with all came up to me, and they were like, "You know what, kid? I know exactly how you feel. I've had this go in my life, or I've had that go in my life." And their story was different to mine.
Yeah.
But what it made me realize was that I wasn't alone, and I wasn't the only one having these thoughts and these feelings, and I wasn't the only one not knowing how to express it. So I was working in Liverpool again on another project, and it was a rainy day, and a lot of the lads had gone home, and I was just catching up with weekly returns and doing my hand and arm vibration stuff and everything else that we have to do. And I just had a thought in my head. I thought my biggest problem was I wasn't talking. Now, I used to see all the posters around site in the canteens and toilets, and they 100% have got a place and they need to be there. But not everybody wants to stand in the canteen and be staring at a poster because, especially as I progressed my career and I became more management and then became senior management, I thought I can't stand and look at these posters because these people that are in these canteens or wherever they are, they're looking at me, looking at a poster to do with mental health, and I'm meant to be in charge of those people or look after them and make sure they're safe and they've got plenty of work and they can earn enough money and all this sort of stuff. And I can't even look after my own mental health. So again, the imposter syndrome stuff was telling me that I can't do that. I can't look at these posters. I can't be seen to be seeking any help and support. So I thought, well, like I said, my biggest problem was I wasn't talking.
No.
So why don't I start a podcast about mental health in construction? Because a podcast is all about talking, and those people that could have felt or feeling like me, or how I felt at that time, they could be sat in the canteen or driving to work or on the tube or on the train or however they're getting to and from work, or they could be out on site with a sneaky earbud in listening to a podcast episode about somebody talking about whatever's going on in their life. It might not necessarily be imposter syndrome. It could be something else that's going on in their life. And that individual could be sat there or stood there thinking, that's me, and I'm feeling like that, and I've gone through that, or I'm going through that. And that person's managed to come out the other side and they've got it all sorted. So maybe I can do that too. And it's just all about encouraging conversations and encouraging people to take that first step and reach out and ask for that help and support and build a bit of hope within the industry. And it's sort of snowballed from there. And now I'm sat having an interview yourself 6 years down the line, 7 years down the line now.
And is that how you tackled those symptoms then? Was it by just getting out there and talking, or did you also have some time with a therapist or an expert? Because it sounds as if imposter syndrome was kind of one element of a few things going on.
Yeah, so the big thing for me was when you boil it down to it, it is confidence stuff, and a lot of that comes from childhood.
Mm.
And I worked on that in therapy. I mean, at that original breakdown, I had 6 sessions of talking therapy, which helped me understand why I was feeling like that, why I was acting like that, why these emotions were taking over my life, and understanding the process of my nervous system and how it's handling or defending itself, because a lot of it is fight or flight and defending yourself. And once I came to understand that, it allowed me to work on the more on the imposter syndrome side of things, and it helped me understand that I was good enough to be here, and I can do this, and I have got the skills to do it. Because I used to sit in meetings, and we could be doing a progress meeting, or it could be a daily meeting that we had with a client who we're working for, and they could turn around to me and go, "Oh, Rob, this brickwork detail's not quite right. You need to do it like this." I know in my head that I'm like, no, that's not the right way of doing it. But that imposter syndrome was holding me back and telling me and making me self-doubt and like, have I got it wrong? And is that the right way to do it? And
Mm.
so I used to sit in those meetings and give them an answer to pacify them. But I learned ways around it towards as I got myself better. And I was like, right, Ross, let me just double check that detail. I feel it's like this, but if you're saying it's like that, let me just go away and double check and come back. So I learned to set expectations, and
Yeah.
I learned to understand and know how to deal with situations like that where push back a little bit, but I don't have to scream and shout and go, no, that's not how you do it. It's like this, and I'm 100% right. Um, I used to let me just go and do a bit of homework and let me just double check for you, and then I'll come back to you with a proper answer. And once I started to do that, I started to build my confidence and go, oh no, I was right that, and this is how we do it, and they were wrong in this instance, and that helped me a lot. But that's because I started to make small changes. And I think what a lot of people have got to understand, Ross, is it takes a long time to get to a point where it's controlling your life. So you can't just do one thing and it switches it off, and all of a
No.
sudden you've got to unpick it, and you've got to build new routines, and you've got to build new confidence levels within yourself to get to that point. And I think the starting point for everybody is recognizing that. maybe I do have something going on, and maybe it is imposter syndrome, and maybe it is holding me back, and maybe you do need to have a look at this because there's loads and loads of free resources out there to do courses that you can do, like a just an insight into what imposter syndrome looks like and how it feels. And then if you are recognizing the signs off that, you can build on that and maybe speak to a therapist or a life coach to help you build these new routines and whatever works for them. The way I did it, Ross, was a lot of the time I had to tell myself to, no, Rob, shut up. You can do this and you can make these decisions and you are good enough for this, and build my self-belief like that. But for other, you might have it, Ross, and you might have to go and do down a totally different route that works for you. But
Yes.
the important things is that you're recognizing it, you're acting upon it, and you're doing something positive about it, because negative thoughts bring on negative actions, but positive thoughts can bring on positive actions. And as much as your mind can be an enemy to you, it can also be a friend and help you get yourself out of that position. I use that. I use that a lot for myself. That I think, well, my mind's got me to this point, but it can also pull me out of it. And that's why I learned to say, like, when I feel those thoughts of imposter syndrome coming back, I'm like, shut up, will you? I don't actually say it that nice to myself sometimes,
Oh, really?
but but
So you still get them now then, Rob? You
oh
still
yeah,
get those,
absolutely, yeah,
yep,
it's still
those
there.
negative thoughts?
The negative thoughts will always come in there, and that self
Mm.
doubt, that big self doubt that I have, it's still there, but I know how to deal with it and I know how to work through it, and that's taken me 6 or 7 years to get to that point. And then people on the that listen to this might think, well, I haven't got 6 or 7 years, and it might not be 6 or 7 years. But what I'm saying is, for me, that once I recognised it, it became a lot easier to deal with it and know where the problem was and know where uh, it was, or start to recognise when things were creeping in, and use my coping strategies that I use. So this morning, I jumped. I've got a cold water bath outside my house. Jumped in that, 3 minutes in that water, and I was able to get out of that, have some nice food, sit, do a load of emails. I've come out and I've had a meeting face to face with somebody near where I live today. I'm now on this, and it makes me so much more productive. And I found
Yeah.
that that's a good routine for me, and that stops because I'm in a positive space. It stops those negative thoughts creeping in. Diet, eating a bit better. You got to think of it, if you're eating rubbish all the time and you put in, it's like your van or your car. If you're putting cheap rubbish fuel in your car,
Yeah.
you're siphoning it out of an old tank somewhere and you're putting it in. It does the job and it gets your car going, but in reality, it's doing damage to the engine, and we're just the same. If you maybe, instead of having 10 coffees a day and three Monster Energies and things like that, maybe swap them for having a bit of water, a bit of fruit juice. Maybe take some time away from your desk as well, or your workplace. Because what I used to find was it was really good to get off site, take a lunchtime. I used to get absolutely bombarded all day long, whether it was the lads that were out on site laying the bricks, or the teams that we were doing the work for, or the office people, QSs coming out and visiting me, and contracts managers coming and visiting me, and everything like that. And everybody would want a piece of me all the time. So I learned to set a boundary that I'm going for a lunch break. I'm going to get off site. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to sit in a park, or I'm going to go do something. And I'm going to have 25, 30 minutes for me.
Yeah.
Then that allows me to stop, reset, and come back. And when people used to come and catch me, I used to say to them, give me half an hour, I'll be back. And they'd be like, yeah, but I need you now. I'm like, yeah, well, I need to do this for me.
And you
So
take your holidays, Rob, now?
I take my holidays. I've just had 2 weeks in Mexico.
Oh, very
So
nice.
I've just come back off holiday and I take my bank holiday weekends. I would have found work. I would have fitted in because I have this internal feeling of failure all the time, whether it's being a dad or whether it's being a partner or whether it's being a bricklayer or a project manager or anything like that, or even the work that I do today. I just have this huge feeling of failure all the time inside me, but I know how to switched that off now, and I know how to see the good in things that I do and understand that, especially the work that I do today, that it has such a positive impact on people's lives. And a good thing to do is look back and see how far you've come, because you can feel like you're not progressing, but you can look back and say, well, 5 years ago, for me, so even if I look back to 2018, 2017, when I had the breakdown, I look back at that time, I used to think I was so unhappy, I was so low, I felt like I was failing in my career. Whereas now I'm going out and I'm doing all these positive things and I've made all these positive changes in my life. And life is not linear, it is up and down, and there is stresses and strains within your life. But now I know how to deal with it and understand it, recognize those feelings, lean into it, but I don't let it consume me. I know what I need to do for me to get me through it. And if I do feel like I do need a bit more support with that, because we all need to top it up sometimes, I'll reach out and I'll ask for a bit of help and I'll do another session of counselling, or I'll go and speak to a friend. A big one for me is, I know that because obviously the construction industry is massively male dominated, I know that a lot of men don't like asking for help. So I've come up with a technique that I try and teach people is, have you got 8 minutes? Because it was Simon, I can't remember his surname. He's like a really good psychologist who has seen something that he'd done, and he said 8 minutes is enough for your cognitive mind to calm itself down and just start to self-soothe your nervous system. And I thought that'd be a good technique to teach people, that instead of ringing up or messaging your friend and saying, you know what, I'm really struggling, I could do with a chat, just flick them a message saying, you got 8 minutes. And
Yeah.
that 8 minutes, if you got the right network around you, they'll know where you are, you'll know where you are. So you don't have to try and overcome that anxious conversation. But you can either go and just absolutely dump on somebody, or they can have a chat with you and they can work through whatever's going on up in your head. Because once I started talking about whether it is the imposter syndrome or whether it was other stuff that was going on in my life, once I started to realize that I'm talking about this stuff, it really is a problem shared is a problem halved. And it can feel like a wall ball that's like exploded, or a cat's that attacked it and pulled it to pieces up in your head. But when you start talking about it, it's coming out and it's starting to get straight, and you can start wrapping it up nice and neat again. Because a lot of the time I'd be talking about this stuff and I'd be like, oh, that's why I feel like that. And oh, that's what's made me do that. And that's why I've reacted in that way. Sometimes you can't see wood for the trees because it's just swirling round and swirling round and swirling round. But once you start talking about stuff, it makes the world a difference.
Brilliant. Well, I think we'll leave it there, because you've just given some excellent advice that I'm sure a lot of people on our sites will find very useful. And you've opened up very personally about your issues. And as you say, I'm sure there's a lot of people who will be able to relate to all of those. So all really leaves me to do is just to thank you for your time, sir, and wish you all the best, and an honour to speak to you. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having us, Ross. And if anybody else has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any of them. So they can get hold of me through all the social media. If they just search MYH Network, they'll find me.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you very much, Rob.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.